Hi, I'm Janine Millen, and this is a quick, very surface tutorial on how I use Excel spreadsheet software to document songs. First of all, the products I'm using, I said I subscribe to Microsoft Office. So this is Office 365 Personal. You can go to their website and find out about that. It includes the word processing software, Microsoft Word. This is Microsoft Excel, which is what we're talking about, PowerPoint, Outlook, Publisher, and Access, which is the database software. I'm also, just FYI, recording this on Movavi Screen Recorder Studio. Okay, starting with a blank sheet in Excel. This is pretty much what it looks like when I open a blank sheet. First of all, these general accounting tools and the vocabulary for formatting spreadsheets is pretty universal to no matter what software you're using. In the old days, I started on VisiCalc and then Lotus 123 and then Excel. So all the concepts are basically the same. So here's just a portion of the screen with some of the tools that we're going to use. When I first open Excel, like I said, I start with a blank sheet. And the very first thing I do is right up here in the upper left-hand corner, you click that, and it's a global select. That means it selects every cell, every row. So it's very handy to do some basic formatting. So right now, first thing I do, let me increase the size of this. First thing I do when I start a blank sheet is I select all the cells and then I make them into a grid pattern of squares. So I'm doing that. When you have everything selected, you can grab one row, or this column, excuse me, one column divider and move it around, and by changing one size it changes them all. I'm not explaining this very well, but okay. So I like that, makes the grid pattern that I like. I could have changed the row heights this way as well by just pulling on one of them. It changes them all. So now I have a standard pattern that I like. And I just clicked in this on the page to deselect all. So select all, deselect. Now I know for reading a sheet of paper, my eyes aren't too good. I like to have the font at least 14, most likely 16, and if I have enough room, 18. So again, just to avoid having to format individual words later on, I format them all to begin with, let's say at 14. Okay, so you can see, and I just took the default font, it's 14. Later on, I'll increase the size of the title. Well, I tweak it a lot later on. So change the cell size, set the font size. Now what I do is, a real shortcut is to find the lyrics to the song that you want online. And then just select them and paste them into your document. But I've already done that, so I have another worksheet here with raw lyrics. So I'm just going to select 3 verses of this for example purposes. Control C, copies it. And I'm going to go back to my sheet. Control V, paste it. That's just how it works in Microsoft Excel. Control C and Control V are shortcuts. I lost my fonts here, so I'm going to select all and move back to 14. There you go. Actually, it looks like I can go quite at least to 16. And I think I'm going to go to 18 for the purposes of this. Okay. So 18 point font. So here are just 3 verses. I'm going to, all I'm going to do is put the chords above each line of the lyrics. So that just, and the chord names are just like C or D or G or E minor. So what I'm going to do is insert a space in between each line of the verse. Insert, insert. Again, I'm not going to explain how to do this, but you know what the skill is called, insert, and whatever software you're in, you use their method for inserting a blank row. Okay. Now, since I have a space between each line, I'm going to have 2 spaces between each verse. Okay, so there's just 2 verses. I've done that too. Now, what I also like to do is color code the verses. So I'm going to select and color code. Verse 1. Verse 2, and so forth. Everything within that blocked area, so if I type within the space, it's going to be that color too, as you see. And sometimes maybe you want the chord names to be a different color, so you might keep that in mind. Another way to, if you want your actual fingerings for the chords input on your song sheet, you need to increase, you need more than 1 space. You need 3 rows. You need to insert 3 rows to make space for the 3 lines, 3 strings that you have on your dulcimer. You'll get what I mean in a minute. So I'm going to keep this first, just for example purposes, as if I was just putting the names of the chords. And then for the second one, I'm going to insert additional lines. And I'm doing that because now I'm going to put the grid for my dulcimer fretboard. And this is called borders. And in Excel, it's very easy. This is the border command. Again, now up above I inserted each row individually. This is how you insert 3 at a time. You just block them out, right click, insert, and there you go. And now I'm just going to copy this. Control C, Control V. Okay, so those are 2 options. I am actually I don't know what this chord is. Okay, I'm going to say it's C minor. I am, so I know the first chord E minor is above am, so E minor. And I'd say this is a G. That's E minor again, let's say. Let's say this is B minor. I'm kind of doing a quick guess on these. So that's how you'd write it if you're comfortable just putting the names of the chords, and you would repeat whatever chords are for the second line. Or here you would go, these aren't the same lyrics, but follows the same pattern. I followed him. So E minor, let's say, is 1, 1, 1. And I'm going to want to make, let's just say I'm going to make my chords black. So, okay, the font black. I followed him gladly, G, 3, 1, O, him gladly to Donnie, E minor, Donnie Brook Fair. Oops. And what's just nice about doing a grid, you can be pretty precise as to where you put, as to which lyric you put the chord change over. That's the main reason for grids. Know that when you enter, if you were to type the lyrics instead of pasting them in, all you do is you start typing in the first cell, I am a young maiden, my story. Anyway, I've gone off screen, but here's the cell, and here's what I started typing in it is above it. Again, these are basic. You should already know how to work in a spreadsheet somewhat, so I shouldn't have to tell you this, but obviously you're not entering words in each individual cell. So it's very easy to select it, to modify it. Like if I wanted to change the color of this, I would just select the cell where I started the phrase and then change the color, bold it, underline it. If I want to underline a specific word in it to show where the chord change would be, I might go I am and then select underline. There you go. You can't see it up here, but once you hit enter, it's entered in the cell. What other basic things do you need to do here? I'll show you some quick samples of some other options. Here's one. This is another way to document verses, to save room and to keep the verses together. You can enter the chord on the line where the lyrics are. And then here I've made them bold by highlighting them in the cell, and colored the verses differently. Here's another one. So this is just an expansion of what I showed you before. Now, here the verses are separated. It takes up a lot of room to keep the verses together the way you're used to seeing them and singing them, and putting a grid above every line. You won't have room. It'll be a 4 or 5 page song, and I want to keep at all costs a song to 2 pages. It's ideal to have it 1 page because you're looking at it in a binder on a music stand, and you don't want to lay out 4 or 5 sheets. So spacing is always important for me. So the best way to do that, if I want to put the fingerings, the verses repeat themselves. They're normally the same chords. So this is the first line of the first verse in black. When you're singing it, you go to the black line to the next line. That's the second line of the verse. So it's, of all the money that e'er I've spent it in good company, and of all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, 'twas done to none but me. You get, and all I've done, okay. And then verse 2 is in green, oh, all the comrades. And the same chords are used for each of the verses. So actually, this technique keeps this song to one sheet. There are 3 verses. The one thing is that you've probably lined up the chords to match exactly with the lyric in the first line, and they may not match as well for the second line. Oh, oh, all, let's see, this one I know. Of all the comrades that e'er I had, they're sorry for my going away. So they fall on different words. One thing you could do is underline for the succeeding verses where the chord change occurs more accurately. What other information did I include in this? Okay, that's it. Another song. Okay, this has got a lot of stuff in it. Here, I've included a fingering for an intro. And then here are the verses laid out, color coded. Okay. With the chords above. Here's a little map. Again, using this border function, you just block in an area. Whoops, block in an area. Go to borders. Choose the way you want it. I'm going to just reverse that because I don't want that there. That's what I did here. This is a map of the song. Tells me I do an intro, then verse 1A, and part B, verse 2, part A, part B, instrumental break, verse 3, part A, etc. I've used a column here to designate the verse numbers and parts. And I've also, this is a little instrumental break between these 2 verses. I've color coded, let me show you how to do that. To just, it's the fill functions. So let's say I've just bordered an area. I want to fill half of it with, I have a choice of all these colors. It's the paint can, half of it there, salmon, let's see, 1 column in purple and 1 column in gray. That's horrible, but that's just a quick skill. The fill function. Let's see if I could reverse out all of these, but I'm going to select the whole area and say no fill. That takes it away. And with the area still selected, no border. Okay. What else is on this? I've also used this to do a chart of the chords used. This is just a quick down and dirty look at the functions and just throwing out the names of some of the functions for you. Also, even maybe before you do your song sheets on the computer using the spreadsheet, maybe you can just make a worksheet to work on manually by hand. So you can set up something like this, just using your knowledge of labeling, spacing, and so here I've made a raw, empty fretboard to fill in fingerings, to fill in the melody of a song. I've given myself a line to add the names of the chords. Here's the song title. Let's look at another one. And then here's a blank one with room for lyrics. That's all. So here I've done a line. Again, this is just selecting an area, selecting a border. See? I'm going to take that off. I'm not using this underline function. That's for underlining text. It's all done with borders. And so you have all these options. You need to experiment with that. That's a very important skill if you're going to do this. It's a lot of fun to figure out how to format these sheets. So anyway, I've done a song title line, put the key, DAD, whatever, CGC. No, the tuning would be that. And then here's the tab. Here's where I can put the names of the chords. It's always good to know what the names of the chords are you're using, become very familiar. If you're going to sing songs, know your chords. And then here's the lyrics, just to handwrite the lyrics so that you can write the fingerings for the chords or the melody notes corresponding with the lyrics. Give yourself plenty of room down here. You could also type this in. Or you could print it out as a blank and work on it while you're watching TV on a clipboard. That's a very quick primer on the basic skills I use to set up a workshop. Good luck and get in lots of practice. Have fun with that. I thought that I would run through a quick example of formatting some raw lyrics to start a song sheet. So here I've pasted in from online the basic lyrics to a song called Matt Hyland. And so they don't even have breaks for the verses the way it was copied and pasted into this Excel sheet. So my first step, once I've pasted it, and I pasted it by just clicking in the upper left corner. First of all, I copy. My shortcut is always Control-C after I block the text in online, and then I come to the Excel spreadsheet, put my cursor in the upper left corner, and then Control-V is the shortcut for pasting. There are other ways to do it using menu editing choices, but that's how I do it. So I've pasted it in. I'm going to click the global select that selects all the cells in the worksheet. I'm going to change each of the cells to be a small square so that it's like a graph paper grid. So I've just done that. I'm fine with the row height right now, but I could change it if I wanted. And now to delineate the verses so that I can see what I'm doing, I do know this song, so I know each verse is 8 lines long. Let me check that. There was Lord. Okay, so this is the first verse. I block it in. I actually don't have to. I'm gonna just block in all the text. I technically don't have to do it that way. Go to my font color. I'm going to just select, for fun, purple. I like to always bold. It increases the size of the font and just makes it easier to see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the second verse. Let me make sure. So straight ahead. I wish to God I'd gone with, yep. Okay. Go to font color. Let's choose another one that's fairly easy to read. Bold it. All right. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's choose another font color. Let's choose a pretty blue. Bold it. Oops. Oh, I see. I can't go any further down because the controls for my screen capture are down there. So anyway, so I've delineated 3 verses by color, and very quickly I'm going to put a separate between them as well. And I do that by selecting the row. I right click. Of course, if you're using a Mac, this isn't how you do it. Right click, insert row. Right click, insert row. All right, now I'm going to actually insert one blank row above each line of the verse so I can put the name of the chords. So insert, 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 insert. Okay, now I'm going to do the second verse, put in the separation, and I'll show you another way to do that. I know I want to insert a row here, so I do Control click. Control click will let me select several rows at one time. I know I want to insert a row here. Control click, Control click, at all the places where I want to insert a row, and then I just right click, insert. Well, I made a couple of mistakes, but you can see more or less that's a shortcut. I'm not sure what I did wrong. Okay, so that's a quicker way to insert rows in multiple areas. I'll just do the first two. And then now I will, there was a Lord, let's say this is a G, I don't know if it is, there was a Lord. And I'm going to just be inputting chords here, and they're all going to be capital letters, so I'm going to put it on caps lock. There was a Lord who lived in this, let's say that's a C. I'm just making up these chords. Who had a lovely, handsome, who had a lovely, handsome daughter. She was courted by a fine young man who was a servant to her father. But when her parents came to know, they swore they'd ban him from the... Again, I don't even know if these are close. The Meiji swore would break had she to part with young man Highland. Okay, I put too many spaces here, so I'll delete one. Okay, now I want these chords to jump out at me more. I want to distinguish them from the rest of the letters in this verse. So I'm going to increase the font, and I'm going to change them to another color. I'm going to make them black. So let's say, select the first, and now I'm clicking the whole row by clicking the row number. I could click each letter separately and work on it, but this is a much faster way to do it. But once I designate a formatting for this row, anything I type outside, anything I type in any area on this row is going to have that formatting. So you might keep that in mind if you're going to make some notes out to the side. That's going to happen. So I'm going to make them black. I'm going to make them bold, and I'm going to make them a giant, let's say 18 font. And the row will normally increase in size to accommodate the font that you put it in. So again, I'll do it here. Next row, black, bold, and what size are these? 18. Okay, sorry, 18. Okay, now again, I'm going to collectively select these rows so I don't have to do them individually now. And you do that by selecting the row, click Control, and select the next row you want to format. I'm holding down Control, click, Control, click, Control, click, Control, click, and you say, I think that's black, bold, and 18. I think I deselected bold. Okay. That's a very important thing to understand, is group selection. Now what I can do is the chord pattern normally repeats with every verse exactly. So one could theoretically copy the first row. And what I did was I selected the row and then Control C, and I plug in. Now you have to select the first cell as a marker for the start of your paste, and Control V. So now I've copied these chords, and I can, for the first line, the chord should be the same, second line same. So let me try it again. Okay, I've selected the chords for the second line in the first verse. Control C, copy. First cell of the where I want to paste them, Control V. Now what most likely happens is these don't line up to the lyrics as they should, because the lyrics are not the same in the second verse. So you would have to move these, and that was easy with just a Control X. Let's say Control C. Whoop. Sorry. Control X is cut. Control V is paste. Control X is cut. Control V is paste. So you might have to move them around because you want the chords to help you to be lined up where you change them with the lyric. So I'm on the third line. Paste. I'm on the fourth line. Control C. Control V, paste. On the fourth line, Control C. Control V. Control C. Control V, and so on. I've run out of room on my page. So those are some quick shortcuts. Now I want to just show you that this shows how wide the page is. This dotted line shows the end of my paper. So if I were to type out beyond that, it would go on to a page 2. And this dotted line shows me the page break, the natural page break, the way I have formatted the document here. So this is what makes using Excel really valuable to me, more than a word processor in making notes, is I can play very easily with the spacing in order to fit this onto one page. So I can do that. Let's say I want to fit this last line of this verse that's colored in on that page. So I would select all and maybe just take a hair off of the row height. I'm lifting it a little bit. Oops, that's too much because it chops off. But very easily, I've not only squeezed this last line of the verse on the page, but I've gained some additional lines. So that's too much. So I'm going to go back here and just play with the row height just a little. Whoops, no, I want it bigger because okay. I still have plenty of room. There you see the hash marks for the page break. I've gained, just by changing the row height, additional lines. I hope I'm not confusing you, but I can make more room. You want the maximum spacing that you can have so that your eye can easily follow what you're doing, and yet be economical with your paper. Okay, now I've really just by making that row adjustment, I've bumped more lines onto the second page. So it's something you have to play with, but I play with this all the time. You can really get it perfect the way you want it. That's how I started it. Tiny smidgen. It's too much. Okay. I haven't succeeded. Because I have 2 lines below the page break. But when you go to print, file, print, another thing I always, here it gives you an actual view. And you can see it goes on to an additional page. So I always look at the margins. You click in the, you can't see it. Let's see. I play with the margins. And there I have it, exactly the way I want it. I always like to leave a nice border on this side for a 3-hole punch because I put them in a binder. If it's 2 pages, I would 3-hole punch on what would be the center margin between the 2 pages. And you go back here. So that's just kind of a quick idea of how you do some quick formatting on these sheets. One last feature I want to share with you that's very useful is to insert text, not formatted text. Sometimes, because I deal with a lot of songs that have a lot of history to them, I like to have an historical note on the song sheet, or maybe just some kind of note about playing the song that's just a paragraph of text. You can't just freely paste a paragraph into a cell because it'll string it out into infinity, and I'll show you that here. Okay, here's a page I was looking at online, and I'm going to, whoops, just select some text, copy it, Control C, get rid of this, and go into my sheet and paste it. And there you see it formatted funny, but anyway, you see it's just going to kind of go out into infinity off to the right. So what you do when you want to paste some text into it, there's just go to the insert function. In this newest version of Microsoft Office that was automatically uploaded with my subscription, sometimes the menus change all the time, and I just realized you have to continue. This continue arrow shows you the feature that I want, and it's text. So I'm going to insert a text box, and it gives you a guide to insert. I actually draw a text box on my worksheet, and now I Control V to paste the text, and it captures it into a box, and then you can enlarge the box. This is a lot of gibberish, but insert text box is a feature I always use, so I wanted to show it to you. If you want to get rid of it, you just press delete and the whole thing is removed.